In the heart of India, millions of young aspirants pin their hopes and dreams on a single acronym, SSC. The Staff Selection Commission is their gateway to a stable government job, a life of security they have been taught to strive for. But in July and August of 2025, this gateway seemed to transform into a cruel labyrinth of chaos and despair. During the much-anticipated Phase 13 exams, lakhs of students found themselves not in a fair race for their future, but in a battle against systemic failure. The very foundation of this trusted recruitment process appeared to be crumbling, leaving a generation of hard-working youth feeling betrayed and utterly helpless. The ordeal began even before students reached the exam hall. Many received their admit cards perilously late, some just a day before the test, inducing immense anxiety. Others were shocked to find their assigned exam centers were located hundreds, sometimes even over 1,000 kilometers away from their homes. Imagine a student from Kanpur being told to travel to Hubballi in Karnataka with only a few days' notice. This logistical nightmare forced many to undertake long, expensive and stressful journeys, while some, lacking the means, had to abandon their chance altogether. It was a failure of basic planning that put an unfair burden on the very people the system was meant to serve. For those who managed to reach their designated locations, a different kind of horror often awaited them. The exam centers themselves were a testament to gross negligence. Students reported being herded into dilapidated buildings with broken chairs and desks, making it impossible to even sit comfortably for a high-stakes exam. Many centers lacked the most basic amenities like functioning fans in the sweltering heat, clean drinking water, or hygienic toilets. In some shocking cases, centers were located above cattle sheds, with the noise and smell creating an unbearable environment for concentration. This wasn't just mismanagement, it was a profound disrespect for the aspirant's dignity. The technological aspect of the computer-based test was equally disastrous. Widespread technical glitches became the norm. Computers would freeze mid-exam, servers would crash, and frequent power cuts with no backup generators would rob students of precious minutes. In many instances, image-based questions, crucial for scoring well, simply failed to load on the screen. The biometric verification systems malfunctioned, causing long delays and panic. Students were handed low-quality pens and faulty mouses, turning a test of knowledge into a frustrating struggle against defunct equipment. The dream of a modern, efficient examination process had turned into a digital age nightmare. At the heart of this widespread fiasco lies a name that has now become infamous among India's student community, Eduquity Career Technologies. In April 2025, the SSC awarded the contract for conducting these massive nationwide exams to this company, replacing the long-standing and relatively trusted vendor, TCS. This decision immediately raised red flags. Students and teachers who closely follow these developments began pointing out that Eduquity had a questionable track record. It was alleged that the firm had been blacklisted by a government department in the past for similar failures, a claim that sowed deep seeds of distrust before the first exam even began. The fears surrounding Eduquity were not unfounded. The company has been linked to poorly managed exams in other states, including controversies in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, where irregularities and leaks were reported. The students' primary concern was that a company with such a history was being entrusted with their future. Why, they asked, was a vendor with a history of failure chosen over one that had managed the process competently for years? The SSC chairman later clarified that the new agency was selected through a transparent tender process. But for the students who suffered, these explanations provided little comfort and felt like bureaucratic jargon deflecting accountability. The problems extended beyond just technical glitches. Grave allegations of cheating and paper leaks began to surface, further eroding any remaining faith in the process. Students from different shifts reported that a huge percentage of questions, sometimes as high as 70 to 80%, were repeated. This gave an enormous and unfair advantage to candidates who took the test on later dates, completely undermining the principle of a level playing field. There were also whispers of papers being circulated before the exam started. Inattentive invigilators, some reportedly busy on their phones, only added to the sense that the sanctity of the examination had been compromised beyond repair. To make matters worse, instead of addressing complaints with empathy, the authorities at some centers responded with intimidation. Students reported the shocking presence of bouncers at exam venues. These imposing figures were not there to help, but to silence anyone who dared to protest the abysmal conditions or technical failures. This heavy-handed approach was a clear message. Your complaints are not welcome. The very idea of hiring muscle to manage students is an insult to the spirit of education and fair competition. It transformed centers of learning and opportunity into zones of fear and suppression, deepening the chasm of distrust between the aspirants and the system. Faced with such blatant injustice, the students of India did what any determined generation would do. They refused to suffer in silence. The simmering anger soon boiled over into organized protests. What started as a storm of hashtags on social media, like hashtag SSC mismanagement and hashtag SSC vendor failure, quickly moved to the streets. Led by students and supportive teachers, a Delhi Chalo March was called, drawing aspirants from across the country to the capital. They gathered at Jantar Mantar and near the SSC headquarters, not as troublemakers, but as citizens demanding their fundamental right to a fair chance. Their voices, unified and powerful, echoed a simple demand: justice. The response from the authorities, however, was far from conciliatory. As peaceful demonstrators raised their voices, they were met with a formidable police presence. There were troubling reports and videos alleging that police resorted to lathi charges, using batons to disperse the crowds of unarmed students. Many protesters were detained and bundled into buses, an action seen as a heavy-handed attempt to quell dissent. While the police denied using excessive force, the images that circulated told a different story. A story of a state seemingly at odds with its own youth, responding to pleas for fairness with force instead of dialogue, further alienating a generation already pushed to its limits. The demands of the protesters were clear, concise, and reasonable. First and foremost, they called for the immediate cancellation of the contract with Educati Career Technologies and the reinstatement of a reliable vendor like TCS. They demanded a complete re-examination for all affected candidates, conducted transparently and at the government's expense, to ensure everyone gets a fair shot. Furthermore, with the massive SSC CGL exam looming, they urged the authorities to either postpone it or provide concrete assurances that the same catastrophic failures would not be repeated, an event that would affect an even larger pool of over 30 lakh aspirants. After days of protest and mounting public pressure, the government began to respond. A delegation of students and teachers managed to meet with the SSC chairman and later with Union Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh. The officials acknowledged the technical issues and promised that a re-exam would be conducted for genuinely affected candidates. They also offered a refund for the answer key challenge fee. While this was a step, it fell short of the students' demand for a universal re-exam. The selective nature of the retest promise left many wondering who would decide who was genuinely affected in a system that had failed so comprehensively. The crisis surrounding the SSC Phase 13 exams is more than just a story of one failed test. It is a wake-up call. For the students, it is a harsh lesson in the fragility of systems and the importance of self-reliance. While fighting for justice is crucial, it is equally important to build a future that doesn't depend solely on the outcome of a single, often unpredictable government exam. This is the time for young Indians to think about having a plan B and even a plan C, relying on one path, especially one that has proven to be so fraught with uncertainty, is a risky strategy in today's fast-changing world. This is where the power of new skills comes in. The digital age has opened up countless opportunities that exist far beyond the traditional confines of government employment. Learning skills in areas like coding, digital marketing, content creation, data analytics, or graphic design can empower young individuals to forge their own paths. These skills are in high demand and offer the potential for not just a livelihood, but a dynamic and fulfilling career. Building a portfolio of practical modern skills provides a safety net. It ensures that your future is in your own hands, not at the mercy of a malfunctioning server or a flawed bureaucratic process. For the government and institutions like the SSC, this episode must serve as a moment of deep introspection and radical reform. The youth are not just vote banks or statistics, they are the engine of India's growth. To treat them with such callousness is to jeopardize the nation's future. There needs to be a complete overhaul of the vendor selection process, ensuring that only competent and credible agencies are chosen. The government must invest in building its own robust independent examination infrastructure to end this reliance on private vendors, whose primary motive might be profit, not public service. Transparency and accountability must become the guiding principles. Ultimately, the strength of a nation is reflected in how it treats its young people. The students who protested on the streets of Delhi were not asking for special treatment, they were asking for fairness. They were demanding a system that honors their hard work, dedication, and aspirations. India's demographic dividend can only be realized if its youth are given a level playing field and opportunities to succeed. Let this crisis be the catalyst for creating a recruitment system that is worthy of their trust. Our students deserve better. India deserves better. Their fight for justice is a fight for the future of the nation itself.